Bolts Nation, welcome to our season finale of the Bolts Block Party, powered by our friends at Highlight IPA. And as it's been every season thus far, we start with this gentleman and we end with this gentleman. Julien BriseBois once again joins the Block Party. And Julien, before we get into everything here this morning, I wanted to recap real quick about the Hall of Fame pickleball tournament, because there's two things I learned in that event. Number one, Kobe is in his own world because there was no shirts versus skins game, but of course he's the only one that was in skins that game. But watching you,
it was hot.
It was hot.
He went skins.
I eventually had to. The shirt fell off.
It was gross. But you, sir, I didn't realize how competitive you really are, and I just want to put it out there for those that were not a part of that tournament. You want a general manager of your team that he's that competitive on the court, because you hope that translates to that competitiveness on the ice. But you're pretty good.
I would say people in our industry tend to be competitive.
Sure.
All of us, GMs, coaches, players, it's a common trait I think we all have.
Well, this guy, I mean, I don't know if you got to play against his team or watch him, but he was fierce the entire
Is competitive something you call someone who's not talented? Was that
not at all.
Your game's okay, but you tried hard.
The game was amazing. So thank you for being a part of that. That was a really great weekend.
It's great to be there.
It was awesome. Yeah. So, Julien, let's dive in right off the jump here about the season. I mean, that's a great reason why we have you here, to really kind of get your lay of the land of how you felt things went. I saw in your press conference that you did post season, you talked about, 98 points, 13th overall in the league. Vazzy, obviously, the injury to start the training camp wasn't there. And then the 2 months that it took for him to kind of get back, and then losing Sergey, but kind of want to get your feelings on how you felt the season went, and we can kind of go from there.
I think you just summarized it really well. I think at the end of the day, every year we have new players, and sometimes the chemistry on the ice takes place right away. Sometimes it takes a little longer. We also went through training camp in the first 2 months of the season without our number one goalie, and he's such a big part of our team. Vassy's a huge part of our team, a huge part of why we believe we can win every year, why the players believe they can win every game, is they see him back there.
Sure.
So obviously that was a factor, and it just took us, I think, a little bit of time to find our mojo. But as you just stated, we ended up with 98 points. 13th overall, exact same as a year ago. But this year we did it without Vassy for the first 2 months, and to be fair, it also took him a little bit of time to kind of get his game back to the standard that he's used to, that he's used us that he has used.
We're accustomed to.
Yeah, we're accustomed to. Thank you. And we did it without Sergachev for more than half the year, and even with that, from the midpoint of the season, which for us was January 8th through April 5th, when we clinched a playoff spot, we had the third best record in the NHL.
Amazing.
So that tells me that going forward, there's reason to believe we can continue to be competitive. On top of that, I would say our team, I know the narrative out there is that we have an older team, that our team is aging, that our team's window is closing. But we're 14th. Like, when you look at the average age of the players, and you can't just do it by take the roster, average the age of the players, because they don't all play the same. If you look at who's on the ice, who's actually eating up minutes, then you average out the age of the people on the ice, we're 14th in the league. And a lot of the teams that are considered the top contenders in the league are older than us. So going forward, like, we're still fine. Our top 9 forward, only one player was over the age of 30, and that was Stammer.
Right.
Our top 4D, only one player was over the age of 30. That was Hedman. Vassy's still under 30. Like, our window is not closed here. And then another reason why I think that we can hopefully extend this window or make the most out of the prime years of our core is, I think our contracts are going to age really well. The market's kind of reset, and we have a lot of guys that have worked with us to stay here and give us good value on their contracts, which in that excess value we can now reinvest in surrounding them with quality players to make this team as good as possible. Like, Cooch is going up against Matthews, McDavid, McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
They make substantially more than he does. They're all 12.5 to 13 and a quarter next year. He's at 9.5. Braydon Point people don't talk about Braydon Point enough. He was third in the league. Like over the last 2 years, he has the third most goals in the league, behind Matthews and Pasternak. Then is Braydon Point. Again, they make substantially more than he does.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan Hagel led our team in ice time in the playoffs this year, led our team in ice time in the playoffs a year ago. He's 8th in the league in even strength points this year.
Which is remarkable.
Like, people don't talk about how good a player he is as well. And he's locked up for the next 8 years. We just have a lot of guys that have worked with us and given us really good contracts to allow us, I believe, to continue to bring in guys to make our team better. And that's the plan going forward.
Julian, what do you attribute that to? Is it your great negotiating skills, or is it the players and kind of their desire to be here and be on this contender?
Combination of the players have worked with us. I think they want to be here. They know we have something special here, and they want to be a part of it.
Sure.
So first and foremost, props to the players. But second, I think there's a timing issue too. When their contracts were up and we locked them into long-term deals because it worked for them and it worked for us. And since then, the market's kind of reset, and guys are now signing for bigger cap numbers than they were a couple years ago. And now we're in a position where we have that excess value.
So, I mean, obviously we know the cap does go up a little bit this year. Can you explain to us why it seems like in other sport leagues, whether it's the NFL, MLB, whatever it may be, they have signing bonuses to hopefully cover some of those funds that you can't really fit into your contract because of the cap issue? Why does National Hockey League not do bonuses? Like signing bonuses or performance bonuses?
Well, we have signing bonuses. Most of our guys have signing bonuses, and that's part of the trade-off. We front them some money. They get it right now.
Yep.
And in exchange, we get them to work with us on the cap number. So we do that in the NHL, and here in Tampa, we've used it substantially, taking advantage of the fact there's no state income tax. Like, we work it from all angles so that the player has as much money as possible in his bank account, and we get the best cap number possible to help that player be successful.
Okay, so how about the cap this year, and how does that change things for us?
Well, it helps. Like, the timing of the pandemic wasn't great for us. Over the last 5 years, the cap's only gone up $2 million.
It's not very much.
$2 million over 5 years is essentially nothing. It's
right.
pretty much flat. Now this year it's going up 5%. That certainly helps, but it helps all 32 teams.
Sure.
Right at the same time. So it helps. We're projecting it to go up another 5% a year from now. It certainly helps. At the end of the day, it also will get players more money in their pockets, which is good for them. That's the way the system is set up. The more revenue the league generates, the better off the owners are, the better off the players are.
Do you feel like that drives competition for free agents and maybe retaining your own free agents?
I think what's happened too is since the last CBA, like, there's more and more long-term contracts. Mm-hmm. So players rarely hit the market. There aren't that many guys that hit the market. If you look every summer who the free agents are, there aren't that many. For the most part, guys get locked up before they hit free agency, and they don't get the test the market again for 7-8 years because they're locked into those long-term contracts. For
sure. So, like, that being said, how do you view this year's free agent market? Like, how do you think it's a good crop of guys, or is it kind of like you said, it's, there's just not the quality of guys you've seen in the past? Obviously, we have a huge free agent in our organization with Stammer and a couple other guys but Stammer being priority number one. But overall, how do you view the crop of free agents?
To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of
generalization.
Generalizations for one, and two, like, the free agent market is tricky. Like, there is such a thing as the winner's curse. Yeah, you get the player short term. They don't often pay off because the way you get a player is by having the highest bid, and therefore you're paying more than what other teams are willing to pay. So, is the free agent market a way to supplement your team? Yes, it can be. I don't know you can build your team that way.
Let me ask you this. So this happened during the season, and there was a player that came out in the media, Noah Hannafin. He came out and he made it very well known in the media that he wanted to come to Tampa. And it was well known that he wanted to be a Tampa Bay Lightning. It didn't end up working out. He signs a long-term contract with Vegas. As head of an organization, how does that make you feel that there's players out there in the general ecosystem of the league that are asking their team at trade deadline time to come to Tampa?
Well, I don't know that in this specific case that the player made that public. I don't remember him making any public comments to that effect, but he was a really good player that was available at the trade deadline. I'm sure a lot of teams are interested in his services. At the end of the day, Vegas as a team was able to work out an agreement with Calgary to acquire his services, and and he ended up signing there. Every year, guys get traded at the deadline, and some of them sign extensions with the team that acquired them. We did that with Nick Paul, for example. We did that with Brendan Hagel, and others end up testing the free agent market. They help you for one playoff run, and then they test the free agent market. We did that with David Savard, for example. So it's always case by case.
It's got to make you feel pretty good about the team. You know, that the group that you've established and the standard that's been set here, that guys want to come here, right? And
for sure,
that makes
and that's
more
huge.
Attractive free agents.
And we try to care for the organization in a way that will continue, that we continue to be an appealing destination. And I think with Jeff Vinnett as the owner and him providing us the resources and the support for us to be successful with the players that we have under contract going forward, we have some elite players here. Coop and his coaching staff are a big part of that. I know the players enjoy playing for Coop. The weather, the quality of life, Tampa's booming, the no stadium tax. Like we're trying to make this as appealing as possible a destination for players. To acquire the players, and two, hopefully they'll work with us on a contract that allows us to retain the player and maintain our competitiveness going forward.
So can you review for our fan base, just to alleviate any of their concerns, who is locked up and who is not locked up right now? The core we know is locked for the most part.
Obviously Steven Stamkos' contract's up. Tyler Mott, his contract. Anthony Duclair, Matt Dumba, the two players we acquired at the trade deadline, their contracts are up. Calvin DeHaan, Austin Watson.
What's it? No, I mean,
Mitch Chafee.
Yep.
I think those of the guys that were playing in the playoffs for us, I think, and ended the season with us, I think those are the guys whose contracts are up at this time.
Gotcha. So speaking of some of those guys that came up this season, whether that's, Lilleberg, Crozier, obviously they're still down playing now for the Crunch, who advanced on, which is pretty remarkable. But talk to us about some of those younger guys that came up this season and the roles that they filled in those needs that we had.
Yeah, well, if you want to get into specifics, you mentioned Lilleberg and Crozier, two guys that played playoff games for us. First of all, a year ago, Emil Lilleberg wasn't even part of our organization. He wasn't on our reserve list. He became a free agent June 1 last summer when Arizona didn't sign him, and we ended up signing him, and he's been a really pleasant surprise. We saw potential in him. We didn't necessarily expect him to be this good this fast,
sure,
and get any NHL games this year. So that was a pleasant surprise, and he did really well with the opportunity that was given to him. Sometimes it's a question of opportunity as well, and it's not because we're holding guys back. But for example, a year ago, I think we only recalled one forward for one game during the 22-23 season. We never had any injuries. We never had any needs to bring up anyone. We didn't have the cap space to bring someone in just to try him.
Right.
This season, unfortunately, we had a lot of injuries, or more injuries. Chernak was out for a while, and Sergachev was out for more than half the season. That gave us a chance to call up different D, give them a chance to showcase themselves, give them a taste of what the NHL is like, so that they have an understanding of where they are right now in their development curve. And Emil did a great job with that opportunity and ended up staying with us for the remainder of the year. Max Crozier did a great job as well, earned himself some playing time in the playoffs after we had some more injuries. And those are two young defensemen that have given us reason to believe they can help us win games at the NHL level going forward. Mitch Chafee is another player that wasn't part of our organization a year ago. We signed him as a free agent in the offseason. He had been in Minnesota's organization prior to that. He was coming off a substantial knee injury.
Yep.
Was out for a long, long time. There's a really long and hard rehab. But he ended up doing great for us in Syracuse, got an opportunity to get called up and made a good impression on us, on the coaches, on his teammates, and got a lot of playing time. He was a regular in our lineup in the playoffs. He's up. He's an unrestricted free agent, but we'll be talking to his agent, and I would like him to remain a member of our organization going forward. So those are the three guys, unless you have others that I know played for us in the playoffs that, a year ago, people weren't necessarily projecting them to make it. And I know I've traded away a lot of first round picks, second round picks, prospects, third round picks, to help make the most out of the opportunities we have in the short term to win with this group of players. So our pipeline isn't as full as some of the other organizations. But guys that no one see coming end up making it. Right? I really believe in our development program. I think Stacey Roos oversees it with JP Cote, our coaches in Syracuse who are doing an incredible job, Joel Bouchard and his staff, not just helping the team win, but helping those young players develop winning habits that will make them better players and eventually, hopefully, Tampa Bay Lightning players. And so we have that program. Guys come in. If they take advantage of the support and the resources that are provided, some of them are going to make it. No one saw Carter Verhaeghe making it when he was in Syracuse at first. No one saw Yanni Gourde make it. No one saw Johnny Marchessault make it. No one saw Emil Lilleberg make it. But guys are going to make it. And that's why I have faith that we're going to continue to be able to bring in young players to help us win games here in Tampa.
Sure. I mean, it's pretty crazy, too, to see, we were talking about before, like you just mentioned, Verhaeghe, Marchessault, guys that were in our system who have, for whatever reasons, obviously we had such a talented group at that time, we just didn't have a spot for you, and to see how successful they are being in the playoffs this year, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. So you mentioned Syracuse. How do you view their season? How, like, for fans that don't follow Syracuse on the regular basis, kind of, could you be able to go through with them a little bit of the recap of Syracuse season and where they're at right now?
Yeah, well, for most of the second half of the year, they were in first place. Even though we kept recalling, especially defensemen, like we ended up recalling a lot of defensemen throughout the year. We recalled a goaltender, like Matt Tompkins was supposed to be like their number one goalie. He was here for the first 2 months of the season because Vasi was injured. And then at the end of the season, when Jonas Johansson got hurt, we recalled Tompkins again. So different players have been given opportunities, and the players in Syracuse have stepped up and made the most out of their opportunities. When someone is called up, it just usually means better opportunity for someone else, and those guys have taken advantage of those opportunities to continue to earn minutes, help the team win. Late in the year when we recalled a number of players, Lilleberg was up, Crozier was up, Tompkins was up. Syracuse ended up getting passed on the last day of the season. They were in first place for the longest time and ended up finishing third. But then they did a great job in the first round against Rochester. For the most part, I would say outplayed them for 5 games. Needed 5 games to win the series. Played great. I was there on Friday night in Rochester. They just they just suffocate you. They play a really tight checking game. They don't give you any time and space. Their goaltending has been good. Their special teams overall have been good. Just really good habits are being developed there. Again, can't say enough good things about all the people that are working with our prospects, starting with Joel Bouchard and the coaching staff, but Barb Underhill, Tracy Tutton, Randy Milani, JP Cote. We have a lot of people that come in and help these players reach their potential.
Those young guys, how do you view a long playoff run as far as like a good experience for them? Because I know, when I go in that dressing room and I talk to guys that were in Norfolk and they won the championship in the American League, and guys that have long runs in the American League, that playoff experience and just that comfort level, it does translate when you get to the NHL. I know it's not the same league, but being able to compete and knowing what it takes to win a playoff round is transferable. So how much value do you put in a long run in Syracuse going towards their development?
And I think for 2 reasons. One, there is nothing closer to NHL action in the world than AHL playoffs. Like in terms of the quality of the execution, the quality of the players, the quality of the urgency, the desperation that you're going to see on the ice, nothing is closer to NHL action than AHL playoffs. So you're giving players an opportunity to compete in an environment that is very similar to what we want them to be able to compete at the next level. That's one. 2, they're learning how to win. Even when you lose, you're learning. You're like, okay, next time maybe we need to do things differently. But they're learning how to win a series. They're learning how to not overreact to a loss or a bad break. Just stay with it, overcome obstacles, show some resiliency. When you do have the lead,
shut them down.
Shut them down. Close it out. And until you've been in those series, you may not know and probably don't know what it takes to win a playoff series. And then you can't win 4 playoff series if you can't win 1. You got to win 1 first. So good for this team and this group of players and this group of coaches. They won the first round here. Now, technically, they got a bye in the first round, so they won the second round. Now they're on to the third round, and hopefully they can pull off another win there.
So some of those younger guys that we've signed to the organization, Isaac Howard, Dylan Duke. We only have a 5th round pick in this year's draft. how much does a draft play a role this summer for you guys?
Well, we're going to be ready as if we had all our picks, but yeah, we have a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, and I think 3 7th round picks. Right now, it's the last year. Essentially, this is the last draft where we're paying for our last 4 long playoff runs, or the 3 that got us to the Stanley Cup Finals, the 2 that won, and then last year we lost to Toronto, but we did invest some capital in that season as well. Next year, for the 25 draft, we have all our picks except the 1st round pick, but we also have 4 additional picks that we've acquired over time in various trades. So we'll have a lot of draft capital there. I told our scouts, like, no pressure. Like, we expect you to draft out of, the superstars out of the 7th round. Joe Pavelski, Henrik Lundqvist, Andre Palat. Just find those guys in the 7th round.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. We'll be fine.
Good luck, guys.
There you go.
I love it. And how do you view this year's draft? Do you think there's a good talent? This is a good group of guys?
I think at the high end, there's a larger group of players that show a lot of promise.
Yeah.
The reality is you never know until they do it at the NHL level. I don't believe there's such a thing as a sure thing. Every now and then there's a Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid, but until you do it, you don't know if they will be able to do it. But there's a lot of players at the high end of the draft this year that show a lot of promise.
So just to switch back gears, I guess we talked about the American League playoffs, just to switch gears to NHL playoffs, and there's 8 teams remaining. And, this league's all about trends. And I guess I wanted to ask you, if you analyze the 8 remaining teams, what is something they all have in common?
They all found a way to win the 1st round. They all have really good teams, and they found a way.
Solid answer.
There's some good teams that and we're one of them. Yeah. Like, we lost the 1st round. I thought we actually played pretty well. I will give Florida credit. They played amazing for 5 games in a row. There was no lull in their game at any point, and that's hard to do, even in the playoffs. There's at this point, all the teams are good. Good teams are going to get eliminated. You need breaks. You need calls to go your way. You need health. You need your players to play their best when it matters. And it changes in a hurry. It changes in a hurry from year to year. It changes in a hurry within a game, within a series. You just want to have as good a team as possible to increase your odds of being successful and of being able to overcome the bad breaks and the lulls and whatever might happen over the course of a season or a game or a series, so that you can come out on top.
So speaking of bad breaks, I wanted to address this because it happened again last night, Florida and Boston, with a goalie interference call where Bennett checked Carlo.
I'm going to say a nudge,
a nudge, whatever, into Carlo, who then went into Slayman, and he scored a goal, and it was reviewed and said, this is a good goal.
Is this Sam Bennett shoved Coyle?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
power play.
So I just would like to hear from your perspective. It seems that goaltender interference, especially more so this year, has been so all over the Richter scale. Like, this is not a good goal. This is a good goal. You as a GM, do you guys have an opportunity to revisit those things in the offseason? Do you get together with other GMs and review things, whether that's refereeing or whatever? Do those things actually come up and they review those things annually? And do you have a say in that?
As far as I can remember, pretty much every GM meeting we have, we will go over some of these examples. The league wants to know what the GM's opinions are as to what the standards need to be. And rule of thumb is the call on the ice, you need to have, it has to be an egregious mistake for it to be overturned.
Got it.
So when the referee calls it a goal, then you have an uphill battle. When the referee calls a disallowed goal, you have an uphill battle if you're going to challenge. So that's the rule of thumb. And some of these you will never get consensus on. It's a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
Which is tough.
Yeah.
It can go either way.
So who do you like in the finals? Is there 2 teams you like in the final, or is that a tough question to ask?
But maybe who we
No, well, that's what I mean. Like, is there 2 teams that you can see being in the finals?
I think every team that's still there, I can see being in the finals.
Yeah.
None of these series have been decided yet, and whoever wins in this round still needs to win another round to get to the finals. So there's a lot of climbing left to be done to end up on top, whoever ends up on top.
So, I mean, we need to touch on it just because it is the most talked about thing in our organization right now is Stammer, and you obviously made it very clear from your perspective. I know Stammer has himself, but again, he's a former player. You're the GM. Does some of those things that you mentioned earlier about no state income tax, the quality of life? We live in a tropical environment that most people vacation to. Do you truly believe that some of those factors truly weigh into players' decisions?
For sure they do. For sure they do. They did when Steven did his last contract. I think winning. I think I did, and you can correct me. You were a player. You can. And again, we're generalizing here. Every player is different.
Correct.
Every player has different things they value. At different points in their life, they might value different things as well. But generally speaking, I think whatever your contract is, in terms of how much money is in your pocket and how good the team is, do I have a chance to win? I think those are the first two factors that go into or weigh the most heavily in any player's decision as to where they want to play. After that, there might be other factors, where they're from, where their wife's from,
right.
The quality of life. There might be different factors. They might have a history with some of the teammates or the coach or the GM. But I think it usually comes down to money in your pocket, and we do have the advantage of the no state income tax. So
Huge.
We try to play that game, and believe me, we do. And two, can I win with this team?
Yes.
If I sign here, do I get it? Do I have a chance of winning a Stanley Cup?
Sure.
Those are the two bigger factors. The biggest factors.
I agree. I think, like you mentioned, a player that's 22 years old has a different priority sometimes than a player that's 34 years old.
Sure.
You know, it's just you're a different part in your life, and some 21-year-olds are married with kids, but not a lot of them.
Sure.
Not unlike people in any field.
Right.
Like at 22, your parties are different than they are at 34 and at 54.
Yeah, and maybe your appetite to move your family, right?
Sure.
So those are things that come into consideration for sure. And I think as a player, you know, those are, you mentioned, those are right up there with the top considerations.
Sure.
At the end of the day.
And I know we were talking earlier about Cooper and the longevity, and I would love for you to touch on that.
I wanted to talk about that. So Peter DeBoer, head coach of the Dallas Stars, he recently came out with some comments, and you know, this time of year is so different, right? Because you know, coaches are being fired all over the place, and the Tampa Bay Lightning have been lucky enough to have this stability of leadership for over a decade now, with Cooper being in the helm. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts a little bit on this, because I'll just quote Peter DeBoer here a little bit. He said about the vicious coaching cycle. He said, "It's insanity. We coach in an age where everyone talks about the modern athlete, building relationships in order to coach them. How do you do that with this kind of turnover? It's like going on a date, getting married, and divorced before appetizers even show up. I don't get it, but that's the world we live in." I kind of wanted like your feelings about coaching carousels, and maybe about what's made Tampa different and the ability to keep their guy at the top for so long.
Well, first of all, that was a great take by Pete DeBoer.
Yeah.
The delivery was amazing, and he is right. At the same time, organizations make decisions on a case-by-case basis based on the cards they have at hand at that particular point. So I'm not questioning what any individual team has done, but for sure, I believe that having some consistency has been a huge asset for us. From ownership, you know, Steve was a GM here for 8 years, which is not negligible. I was here for those 8 years. I'm still here. So that's 14 years of continuity in management. Coop's been with us for 14 years, been our head coach, I think, for 11 or 12.
Yep.
March of 2013, so 11. Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman have been here throughout and have been part of the group of players that play a big role on the team. And over time, because they were teenagers at first, but over time they've grown into the leaders of this team. I just believe that helps us because we know what it is we're trying to do. We know who can do what. We just have a history with how we got here, so we can make better decisions going forward as to how to make the most out of the group we have. I remember talking to, and I'm not going to name, but a general manager in another sport that's been greatly successful and it's been at the helm for a long, long time. And I compared his organization to another organization that he was, and when he came in, those were the two top teams in the league and in their sport, and they competed for a while. And his team is still a really good team, and the other team has had ups and downs. And I asked him, like, why do you think that is? And he said, consistency. Most of our management group have been here from the start.
Sure.
So you're not coming in wondering how did we get here. You know how we got here. So you're not relearning things that the organization has already learned as a new management group, as a new coach, because you've already learned those lessons. You've already tried these things. So I do see a lot of value in that, in having some consistency. Now, nothing lasts forever. And I think when some of these changes are made, you're not necessarily disavowing the coach or the work that he's done or how good a coach he is or how good a job he's done. You're just looking ahead going, okay, what does this group need? And maybe we need something different.
Interesting.
I like that.
Let's talk real quick about the Worlds and, Heddy is having success. Acemont. Who are the other guys that are playing?
Yeah, we got Heddy, Paulie, Hagel, Acemont. They're playing the World Championships. And do you like when players go over and play in the World Championships?
I do. It's a great honor to play for your country.
Sure.
Like it is. Like it just is. And the guys usually really enjoy being there and feel that it's an honor for them. I talked to all those guys before they went, and they're all excited to go. You get to meet different players and play with different players. You get to learn from those players. Players usually come back better from having gone through that experience. And I'm hoping, like we have the Four Nations next winter. I would expect that many of our players are going to be on those teams. And then the following winter, it's the Olympics. Those I think are just great opportunities from a development standpoint. And these are some of the best players already, but they can still get better. There's still stuff they can learn. There's still growth for them to experience. And I think playing with other great players in this environment, for your national team, with the pride on the line, the national pride on the line, I think it's just a great experience for those players.
I'm so glad you said that because I got an opportunity to play a couple World Championships, and I was in Bern, Switzerland, and teammates of mine were Marty St. Louis and Steven Stamkos, and I had never played with them up until that point. I was in Philly, but you learn a lot from these guys. Being on the team with them, and these tournaments are 2.5, 3 weeks long. It's not it seems like a long time you're together as a group. But also, your teammates you see in a different way because now you're practicing against them all the time. And then when you go back to your NHL teams, you have some inside information. And as a defenseman, I was always looking for that little bit of inside information about how to play this guy. What is he like in practice? Maybe what does he like to do? So I think this opportunity is really good for these guys to do that and learn. And I guess from a management standpoint, I wanted to ask about the World Championships and scouting players. You mentioned Chafee and Lilleberg and scouting those guys as free agents. How much stock do you guys put into scouting the World Championships for maybe possible free agents, European free agents?
Yeah, well, usually by the time we get to May, when the World Championships takes place, we have a book on these guys. We've been following them, most of them, for many years. If we are at a point at this time of the year where we have interest in maybe signing one of these players, that interest has grown throughout the year, right? We've seen the player progress, and now we get a chance to see them play in a different environment, maybe where the level of urgency and desperation is a little higher, the caliber of players is a little higher, the level of execution is a little higher, and we can see how they perform. But Emil Lilleberg's a good example. We saw him last year at the Worlds. We had been following him. And based on that experience, we really wanted to sign him, hoping that he wouldn't sign with Arizona. We had heard that they weren't going to sign him. So when he became a free agent, we were really aggressive in pursuing him because player with those attributes at that age that had shown what he had shown last year in Europe, we thought there was opportunity for him to continue to develop and hopefully down the road become an NHL player. We didn't think it'd be this fast,
sure,
but we saw the potential there in him. So that's a good example.
It's great for those guys to showcase. So I wanted to ask you, your background before being an NHL GM was being a lawyer. All right. So I would like you to make the case for Nikita Kucherov's MVP award this year. Can you make a case over the other guys of why Nikita deserves this MVP this year?
100 assists has never been, it's been done by 5 different players in the history of the league. He's the first winger to do it. 40 goals and 100 assists in the same season has only been done by Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky, and now Nikita Kucherov. I could stop there. Led the league in scoring. When we had all those injuries, when we didn't have our number one goalie, he was a big part of the guys that were pulling our team and got us into playoff contention, eventually secured a playoff spot. of all of the candidates, I don't want to speak ill of the others. They're phenomenal players and they had phenomenal seasons. More than 3 players deserve to be on the ballot, to be honest. And more than 3 players deserve to win. But when you look at where Cooch's production came from, he produced at his best against the best teams.
Facts.
And no one else. That's true for no one else. Even strength points, he's number 2 in the league. We had number 1 power play in the league. He's kind of the straw that stirs that drink. He's
the best.
He's
the best.
He had a phenomenal season. He had a historic season. And I hope at the end of the day he gets the Pearson and the Ted Lindsay and the Hart.
Yeah. Pearson too. Yeah, that's always indicative because that's voted on by the players, right?
Yeah.
But I like your case. I like your case. It's a strong case.
The Lindsay, I always say the players know.
Right.
Coaches think, management think, but the players know. They know. And whoever they end up. Now, the criteria is a little different. One is most valuable player. The other one I think is outstanding player. So maybe that makes a difference. But it'll be interesting to see where who ends up winning the Ted Lindsay as well.
All right. Before we wrap it up, final question. This is a fan-related question.
I'll add another reason. Highlight reel plays. No one led the league. Cooch led the league by a mile. And we get to see every game. I get to see every game. So I get to see every one of those highlights. But most fans only see the ones that end up with a goal.
Right.
But for every time he set up a highlight scoring chance and ended up in the net, there's 3 or 4 others that he set up that no one saw unless they were at the game.
It's special, honestly, Greg.
It is special.
I tell my kids every time the game's on or we come to the games, just for a period, just for one period, wow. ISO cam Cooch and just see what he does. Right. And you can see the genius of how he plays and I guess how special it is that he is here playing for us, and we get this front row seat into what he's doing.
The one play that just sticks out from this season was the one where he was in the corner and he was on his knees and literally back pat. I mean, who even thinks to do that on his knees? And then was it Hagel or Pointer? Pointer scores a goal because he was in the right. I mean, that stuff is like you say, hockey IQ.
Yeah, but it's every week. It's every week.
Game. Yeah. Do you feel? And we asked Steve Griggs this. Do you feel? I'm going to say within the next 5 years that we will have an outdoor game here in Tampa.
I am very optimistic that we will. Yes, I know the Steve Griggs and his team have been working on it for a long time. Yeah. Every chance I get to bring it up, I bring it up.
Sure.
with the powers that be at the NHL offices because I think it'd be great for our players. I think, we play 82 games. At the end of your career, you're not going to remember all 82 of those games, but you remember the special ones. You remember the games in Sweden for the Global Series. You remember the outdoor game in Nashville, and an outdoor game in Tampa would be great for our players, phenomenal. It kind of breaks up the season. It's something you look forward to. Your family comes in. And for our fans who have been, we have the longest sellout streak in the league. Our fans travel great. When we went to Nashville, they were there. They showed up. We went to Sweden. They showed up. Our fans deserve to have an outdoor game here at home.
There it is. All right. Well, listen, we're running out of time, and we know you have a very busy summer ahead of you, but we do want to thank you again for an exceptional season. No matter how it ended, we still had a remarkable season, and we look forward to seeing the magic you guys are going to pull off here in this off season, and we wish you nothing but luck.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Congrats on a good season for you guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, because
awesome.
It's not always easy doing the media availability at the end of the year. It's kind of like we said. We talked to Cooch, and Cooch said, hey, I'll come on when we win the Stanley Cup,
right.
And so not everyone could have that position, but, we didn't win the Stanley Cup. We didn't achieve our goal ultimately,
right.
But we really appreciate you coming on and you're a regular guest on the show now. It seems like twice a year, but thank you so much. And we wish you nothing best.
Well, thank you.
And Bolts Nation, we appreciate you guys for tuning in all season long to the Bolts Block Party powered by our friends at Highlight IPA, and we will see you guys soon.